Welcome to the Flying Octopus podcast, offering a new perspective on Red Wings hockey, as well as all the important news from around the NHL. And now, here are your hosts, Tony Wolak, Devin Little, and Evan Sabrin.
So I think I've kind of figured out why the Red Wings have struggled recently. And, you know, we always talk about bottom pairing defensemen or secondary scoring or the bottom six forwards. That's not the case. I've found out that the main culprit, the kryptonite for the Red Wings, is Tony Wolak attending Red Wings games in person. Tony, what is your record now this year attending Red Wings games there in Washington?
Listen, man, it's 0-3, but in all three games, the Red Wings have had two good periods and one bad period. So in theory, they're winning the games based on winning the periods. But I know that's not how the standings work.
So basically we need to take like a close-up mug shot of you and send it to NHL arenas so that you don't visit or attend any more games. Can you maybe stay away from the team like next year or something?
I can't make any promises, but I hear you.
What do they call like bad luck charms? So you can't say good luck. You're bad luck charm. Is that what you are? Or you're not? You're an opposite of a rabbit's foot. You're like a donkey's foot or something. I don't know.
Just kryptonite, man.
Welcome to episode 27 of the Flying Octopus podcast. Devin's already crying. We're excited here to join you guys today, and I'm back after a brief hiatus. It's been a rough couple of weeks here, and I think now it's time it's reality time. And reality time is to think that it doesn't look like this team's going to push for a postseason spot. At least that doesn't look like that way with the way they've been playing recently. And Devin, I'm going to start with you. I want to know, how did we get here, and what do you think going forward happens with this team?
Last couple of weeks, pretty much since the Four Nations break, I wake up, I open up my NHL app, I look at the standings, and I have that question: how did we get here? What is happening? Right now, as of this recording, the Red Wings find themselves in a little bit of a pickle. They are 32-30-6, which is good for 70 points. There's 14 games to go. They're still very much in a playoff race right now, but things aren't looking that great. Per Money Puck, their chances of making the playoffs are just at 7% right now. I don't know if you guys are gamblers or anything, but if my odds of hitting are 7%, I'm probably not going to play that hand or, whatever.
Hit me.
It does. I also like to live life dangerously. And it doesn't get any easier from here, guys. Upcoming games, Saturday, they're playing against the Vegas Golden Knights in Vegas. Obviously, they did just beat the Golden Knights just a little bit ago at Little Caesars Arena, but something tells me the energy might be a little bit different over there in Vegas. And then Monday they play at Utah for the first time playing in Utah. That'll be an exciting game. They then follow that up on Tuesday, this very next night, against the Colorado Avalanche. Surely will be an easy game, right? And then they are home versus the Ottawa Senators, one of those teams that they're trying to chase on Thursday. So 4 big games coming up. You look at those 4 opponents, and I honestly can't say any of them are gimme games. They're going to have to fight for every point, and they're at a point with their record where they have no choice. Their margin of error is basically gone. To kind of also give an update of where, what they're kind of dealing with heading into these games. Elmer Soderblom is day-to-day. He's obviously been a big boost to the lineup since joining. But it seems like he's going to miss a game, maybe 2. We'll kind of try to stay updated on what his status is. Eric Gustafsson is out. I'm sure many people are very upset about that fact, but regardless, Eric Gustafsson is going to be out of the lineup. Jeff Petrie has been practicing. He took a regular shift during practice today with Justin Hall. Seems like he is very close to returning. Not quite a pencil in for Saturday, but you might see him Monday against Utah. We'll see. And then it was mentioned that because of Soderblom and kind of the uncertainty on the blue line right now, they are expecting to recall someone from Grand Rapids. We're eagerly waiting to see who that will be. All of that being said, I think the question was how did we get here? Where are we? What is going on? Since the Four Nations break, especially, the Red Wings have not been able to win games, and it's because they've had a really hard time scoring consistently. Earlier part of the season, it seemed like whenever they had a power play, they scored. That's not necessarily the case anymore. And then 5-on-5, it was always kind of hit and miss, and it continues to be hit and miss. And honestly, it's more miss than it is hit nowadays. Tony, I know I kind of gave a big overview of things, but what are you seeing in terms of the Red Wings struggles since the Four Nations break?
It all comes down to goals, right? And it's kind of silly to say this, but you can't win if you don't score, and you need to score. And like, I know that's like the most simplistic like thing you can say, but it's true. And the Red Wings haven't been scoring. Touching on what Evan mentioned earlier, I was at the Red Wings Capitals game, and they scored 1 goal, and that was, not fun to see, and it made me 0 for 3 on the season for attending games. But again, I'm sorry, I apparently am kryptonite. But first things first, the offense needs to come through, and I do think we need to see some changes in the lineup to like just generate something, right? Like this team, how they're currently constructed, you got to find the chemistry that works. And like one thing that has worked in the past is putting Marco Kasper on a line with Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond. And I know there's definitely value in him centering the second line with DeBrincat and Kane. But I think at this point, it's like all hands on deck, just like get a win, create some momentum, and then see where we go from there. There's more there than what we're currently seeing. If Soderblom is out, that's obviously disappointing because he's been great. Hopefully the Red Wings, call up, say like a Nate Danielson over like an Austin Watson type to, boost the offensive output. But I do think they should give Kasper, Larkin, and Raymond another look before the season's over. Just because that line did produce when they were together. And that would leave either JT Compher or Michael Rasmussen to center the second line. While I guess there wasn't a big sample size with Rasmussen with DeBrincat and Kane, and Compher, DeBrincat and Kane didn't have like the best numbers together. They did still score. So I don't know, just at least try that, because what they currently have, it didn't work. Like against the Capitals, being there, they just couldn't generate enough like high danger chances, and everything just happened to come from the outside. They got looks from the outside for sure. Like DeBrincat had a great game of just trying to funnel pucks to the net, but it just didn't work out. They need to figure out something where they can get more high danger chances. So I do think with Kasper, with Larkin and Raymond, that might be like just a spark that Larkin and Raymond need to get back on track. And if that leaves DeBrincat and Kane to kind of pull Compher along on the second line, sure, why not? But please do not put out Compher, Tarasenko, and Berggren again, because they were absolutely terrible against the Capitals. It was one of those things where it's like the eye test and the metrics from the game just don't really match, because like it did say that they generated some high danger chances, and if you're looking at that in just the box score or the natural stat trick report from it, it's like, oh cool, great. But if you're at the game, like for example, JT Compher had 3 individual high danger chances. 2 of those came on a mini breakaway from the slot where he was all alone. He whiffed on the first attempt, and then the second attempt just slapped it into the goalie's pad. That's
what ended it, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's one of those things where you need to actually see what happened to add that context to the data, to what's going on. So that line in particular, you have two wingers who are just pure offense driven and do not have an ounce of defense in them. And just please do not run that back, because like that is not, it's gonna, there's gonna be an issue down the road with that line. So instead, whether it's Soderblom or maybe a Nate Danielson per se, put them on a line with Rasmussen and Berggren as the third line, because that, at least Soderblom, Rasmussen, Berggren did have some pretty good games when the Red Wings were on their last like 7-game winning streak, and were seeming to generate chance after chance after chance in the offensive zone. And that would leave Tarasenko, Mott, and Smith to kind of man the fourth line / put two of those guys out with a center for like a sort of a double shift sort of situation. Well, I guess the main point I'm getting at is the season's kind of on the line at this point, and they need to keep their best players on the ice. And right now, like Tarasenko's not one of those, and Mott generally isn't one of those unless it's on the penalty kill. And Smith has been, fine, but if we're gonna have someone else join them on the fourth line, it's probably gonna be him. But again, the first two lines really need to contribute, and I do think there is potential with either Soderblom or Danielson or someone of that ilk with Rasmussen or Berggren. Like, the team needs goals. They haven't been scoring. Change things up. See if you can find some chemistry.
Yeah, I'm in the acceptance stage, guys. There's different stages. There's the me getting like super real crazy angry, and then I calm down a little, and then they win, and I get optimistic again. But I've let go of all that. Now I'm at the acceptance stage. And while they technically are, yes, they're still in the playoff hunt. You can't see it when you see the way this team has performed. It's hard to envision that team. Although, wearing my Tigers hat today, what was the Tigers' chances of making the playoffs at one point? It was like 0.0, like 6 or 7 or something, and they went on a crazy run. Don't see that happening here in Detroit. The one thing I do want to talk about, though, is when you look back at this season, and it's something that I think sometimes that we forget to talk about, because expectations were so big after last year, after missing in that last game. And you talk about this year with the development we've seen. How many young kids are getting their first taste of like real NHL action this year? These are basically the first full season for Soderblom. This is basically the most Bergeron's played. Casper's up. You keep getting these players that are getting development time, and this is still key to the process. So this is, I still think this season is, it's not how everybody's doom and gloom and, the Red Wings are disappointed and didn't miss the playoffs. This was a key development year. And this is something I think you can build on, because we've seen, I forgot Albert Johansson. I mean, watching him develop, Soderblom, Casper, these guys, like this is the next wave of the Red Wings future, and they're just got their first taste of the NHL. Normally teams aren't going to compete for a playoff spot when you have that many young kids in the lineup. So I again, at the acceptance stage, maybe this is just the great development year that a lot of people were hoping for. You've heard in years past everyone talking about what they won't play the kids or play the kids. Now they play the kids, and everyone's still, upset. But again, I think it's a good year for the kids, and I think next year it's going to be something good to build upon. But I don't have the faith that this team is going to make a run here at the end.
You know what, Evan, I think that's a really solid point. I think that there will come a day where the fan base as a whole will look back on this season, and I think that they'll see it as a net positive because of exactly what you're talking about there. It has been a constant beat of play the kids, and sometimes I've been the one hitting the drum with that too. And this season, boy, did they play the kids. Regardless of where they end this season at, where their draft pick's going to be, all of that nonsense. The kids played this season, and they were a big reason why they had the success that they did have, even though it wasn't enough. I know we're kind of jumping ahead of ourselves here, but it's also important to note too that it's not just that they're playing. It's not just that, wow, they look like NHL players. They for the most part, the Red Wings' best players this season have been their homegrown talent. I think all of us were kind of hopeful that Albert Johansson would show that he was a capable everyday NHL defender. I don't know that any of us were expecting him to hold down that middle pairing with Simon Edvinsson basically the entire season. I'm a huge Albert Johansson guy, and I was not expecting that. Marco Casper, I mean, he's been a top line winger. He's been the second line center. I mean, we talked about this last week, Tony, where there's like the ideal outcome, and then there's what you kind of realistically expect to happen. And Casper's one where you kind of got the best of both worlds. It's a tricky thing, and you did make a great point, Evan. When you have a roster mostly being carried by youth, those types of teams do not typically make the playoffs. They can be very exciting and they can make things interesting, but typically championships are won by teams that have been there, done that, and have battle scars from multiple failed attempts, let alone, just playoff berths. The Red Wings haven't even gotten a playoff berth yet, so they're not quite where they want to be. And then just real quick, hearing you talk, Tony, about just different line permutations they should try and the need for them to shake things up. I agree. It's one of those things where, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it is broke right now. They do need to fix it. But boy, do they miss Andrew Kopp right now or what? Like another thing that was not on my bingo card. Andrew Kopp is like very sorely missed right now. And I get that he's not a huge point producer and he's not even like, he's not like a Corsi god or anything like that. But you look at this lineup and who's available and where they could all slot. And it's very obvious that they're missing a centerman right now. And that centerman is Kopp. I don't necessarily feel comfortable about Comfer in that second line role next to DeBrincat and Kane, but who else are you going to put there? That's where you'd put Kopp if he was available. And then even, talking about Soderblom maybe moving up and down and trying to provide that edge. I'm also seeing this lineup and thinking this is what they were going to do with Carter Mazer. He would have been a really good spot on that top line with Larkin and Raymond if things had gone well and he kind of earned that opportunity. I see that Casper in that 2C and Mazer on the top line with Larkin and Raymond, but it wasn't meant to be. Right now, it's a crazy time to endure this, but they're getting a lot of little injuries that are putting them in a spot they didn't want to be in, and they don't look how they want to look right now because of it. But all of this, I guess, to say that the season's probably not going to end how we wanted it to end. The playoff drought is more than likely going to continue, but I do think that there are a lot of positives that we can take from this season. And hopefully there will be a few more positives to take away in the final weeks here.
It was interesting. Like one of the positives for the season, obviously, has been the power play. Like franchise record setting power play. There were 0 penalties against the Capitals. I'm sitting there up like in the stands with my best friend who's a Capitals fan, and obviously he's rooting for Ovechkin to break the goal scoring record, and I'm just like, just please make the playoffs. Like that's very different hopes for that game, right? No, but we were sitting there like, still no power plays. That was a trip. Well, the refs are putting the whistles away. Still no power plays in the second period. Still none in the third. It was very surprising, but it kind of does highlight the point of the Red Wings need power plays to score goals, and like. It's an obvious statement, but it does kind of the flip side of that is their 5-on-5 offense needs to contribute more. And that didn't happen against the Capitals, and hopefully against the Golden Knights on Saturday here that, either they, get their power play opportunities or the 5-on-5 offense, finds itself. But man, like it looks so weird watching a hockey game and there's 0 penalties in the entire game. Like, it did feel like for the first 2 periods, kind of feel like a playoff game in a sense of like, all right, it's a tight checking game. Each team is kind of getting some quality chances, but mostly they're getting shut down. Johansson had a great game, just, just keeping the puck out of dangerous zones and finding a way when it's downloaded to squeak the puck out and get it out of the zone. But yeah, it was I was hoping for the Red Wings to get a power play and score a goal and take the lead and steal a win against the Capitals, but it wasn't meant to be. It does give me a little bit of hope. For me, I'm like, as long as there's a chance, I'm hoping for it until they're eliminated. Like, that's how I'm feeling about it. I know, Evan, you and I disagree on that, but
join me in the acceptance stage.
No, absolutely not. The Red Wings they beat the Capitals once, and then the two losses, they have had two good periods in both of those games. Don't ask me about the third period for those games. That's a sort of topic, but I at least like their chances compared, like with the Capitals compared to say like the Panthers. But obviously it comes down to scoring, and that's something that needs to get figured out in a hurry here because, like Devin, you're mentioning at the top, between Vegas, Utah, Colorado, and Ottawa, there's no margin for error, and that's a tough schedule. So this week kind of determines the fate of the season, if you will.
No, absolutely. And I mean, it was probably a lot of fun to see like you said, a just 5-on-5 basically the entire time. That is very much a playoff game, right? And it's kind of a direct contrast with where, the types of games they were in the beginning part of the season. They were always on the power play, which was at the top of the league. And then if they weren't on the power play, they were on the penalty kill, which was historically bad. It's been a roller coaster of a season. And we, Evan, you and I were riding that roller coaster last season, and here we are. We're right back on this damn roller coaster. I do think I find myself very conflicted with where the Red Wings are at right now. Because personally, I'm very much of the mindset that if you're not going to compete for a championship, then you should be trying to get as high of a draft pick as possible. You should either be trying to get that prize or that prize, one or the other. But the Red Wings, let's be honest, are not going to get the top draft pick this year. They're not even going to get the second draft pick. If they pick 8th this season, it's because some things went horribly wrong and they probably still got a little lucky because, I don't think that's happening. And with that being said, I find myself also agreeing with you, Tony. As long as they have a chance, they need to act like it and behave like it. We talked about all the development happening this season. That development isn't going to continue as soon as they kind of check out of the season. Once you kind of roll over and accept this season's not going to go where we want to go, then people aren't going to be checking as hard and people aren't going to be hustling as hard, and you're kind of already thinking about where you're going to be taking a vacation in May. And I think that while you have a shot, you need to own that you have a shot, and that will kind of further the development of their young guys that are in this situation for the first time, or even just the second time in their careers. Either way, this is prime development territory. You got to use it while you have it. And speaking of development, a player that we're all very excited to see develop over in here in North America is Swedish prospect Axel Sandin Pellikka. So perhaps you've heard of him.
Haven't heard.
A lot of noise surrounding this kid is starting to pop up. There's some reports surfacing that there's a really good shot that if his season ends, or when his season ends, he's going to make his way over to North America and potentially make his Red Wings debut a la Marco Kasper a few years ago. I am very interested in what you guys think about the possibility about Axel Sandin Pellikka playing for the Red Wings this season. I'm sure we're all very excited about him. I know I am. He was my number one ranked prospect, Red Wings prospect, when I ranked their prospect pool back in January. And I think this kid has all the tools to be something very special. Like I said, I'm very curious to hear what you guys think about this possibility, Tony.
It's interesting because, like, obviously, I'm excited to have a highly talented offensive defenseman, join the organization, but keeping my expectations at bay here because just of how this team has treated prospects in the past. Like, you have to earn your spot, and there's no like guarantees or anything. So I wouldn't be surprised if he starts with the Griffins. But even before we get to that, like, the first round of the playoffs just started for the SHL. Like, the Axel Sandin Pellikka and Michael Brenzig Nygaard play for Skellefteå, and they are facing off against Färjestad. And, if they lose in the first round, yeah, he'll probably come over, play a few games for, I'm guessing, the Griffins, and join them for their playoff run. But I would be surprised if he joined the Red Wings. But also, there's obviously a chance that they advance to the second round and maybe to the third round. So, like, I would love to see him play in North America this season, but I'm not like holding my breath for it to happen, just because there are a couple things that need to take place before that even happens. But again, someone of Axel Sandin Pellikka's like nature for an offensive defenseman, given Detroit's power play, he could be a huge boost to the second power play unit for sure. Maybe he can even play on the first, because if it were in the last few games of the season and let's say the Red Wings are eliminated, why not give him a shot? Because he definitely has the hockey IQ to excel there. But I am curious to see how he performs with the Griffins, how he slots into their lineup, what kind of role he gets, to sort of, I don't know, set the stage for next season. Like, I take a conservative approach here, just because Detroit has historically made prospects really push for a roster spot and earn that role, and with nothing being given. So I'm not convinced that he'll start the 2025-26 season with the Red Wings. I expect him to start with the Griffins. I'm sure that will change at some point in the season, and he'll be up with the big league club. But that's just at least how I'm approaching things. But if he looks good with the Griffins this season, or if he looks good with the Red Wings with a cameo, hey, things could change. So again, I'm taking a conservative approach with him. We'll just see how things play out with the playoffs before like I even get any expectations about what to expect with the Griffins or the Red Wings.
I'm scarred from Red Wings prospect debuts. Look what happened to Marco Kasper's first game. Look what happened to Carter Mazer his first game. Like, put him in bubble wrap, man. Just save him for next season. I can't take that anymore. I'm still not over Carter Mazer. I mean, if there was a player this year that I really wanted to see, get that development time, and it was really him, and that was just a kick in the, what. But talking about Axel Sandin Pellikka, and we talked about this briefly before we started the pod, has there been a prospect that has been more hyped than this guy? I can't think of one, honestly. I know it's different now in this day of social media, and you can actually watch clips of him over there in Sweden. But man, I think people are like expecting this guy to come over and be like a franchise savior the way people talk about him. And that's obviously not going to happen, but he could make a decent impact. You saw what Cale Makar did when he first came over to the Colorado Avalanche. He was a stud. I'm not putting Axel Sandin Pellikka in a Cale Makar class yet, but from, obviously what we've seen and, the hype, it looks to be legit, because, God, man, if this kid was a bust, that'd be like worse than Zadina, right? No? I mean, I'm still not over that one either. My password is still Zadina for my computer if you ever want to break into it. I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's unfortunate. At least for me, the most hyped Red Wings prospect was Moritz Seider. Like, during that COVID year when he was playing in the SHL, I feel like, having played in Grand Rapids the year before and seeing him just dominate, the SHL, that sort of set the stage for him to just, come in and join the Red Wings the following year. And it was like day after day of, oh man, he just crushed this guy with this huge hit, or he made this really smart play to exit the zone, or he had this really like awesome play to create a goal or score a goal himself. So I feel like with Seider, it was like a multi-factor sort of thing, where it was either like, where it was both zones, but I mean, it's hard to argue with what you've seen with Sandin Pellikka with his scoring, setting records, and just being an absolute driver for Skellefteå. And it does give me hope that he'll be part of the Red Wings next year. But like, kind of seeing how things play out, like I'm okay to be patient for a little bit. But again, it's like seeing this track record is like, all right, we might have a player here, and that's obviously something that's needed if the Red Wings are going to be a playoff contender, moving into the future.
One thing that I think maybe puts the Seider hype into perspective is that people were so excited about him joining the Red Wings that they kind of completely overlooked the possibility that Lucas Raymond would join him too. And he did. Like, yeah, the Seider hype was definitely real.
And I mean, it was fair because he won the Calder Trophy that year. But I don't know, guys. Like, we've been it's been a little doom and gloom this episode, and I know the season's not over yet. There's still time to make up ground. But like, looking at the NHL app right now, Panthers defeated the Blue Jackets in overtime. The Maple Leafs defeated the Rangers in regulation. The Senators lost in regulation. And right now, the Islanders are up on the Canadiens 3-1 in the third period. So it's giving me more hope. What can I say?
Right here is where I'm going to insert that Jeremy Renner meme where it says, "Please don't give me hope." You know, one from the Marvel ones. Is that me? That's what I am, right? I'm like the downer on this podcast because you guys are more optimistic than I am when I'm trying to say acceptance. Since we all look like we're a Star Wars character in these things, come to the dark side with me, guys. Come on over. It's hard for me to say that they can make a playoff run with the way they played the last 2 months. I mean, it's just amazing to me how every year that December, March hits, and it's, again, the roller coaster never ends. But hopefully this team's going to get something out of this season with the development of these kids. And as we've talked about, I'm excited about that part. But yeah, I don't share the same optimism as you guys yet do right now. But I'll turn the corner if they can string a couple of wins together. I mean, I don't know who did this schedule, by the way, but it's like, who just gave them, like, it's not even a murderer's row. It's like a murderer's month. It's like a murderer's 2-month row. It's every other night you're playing the Capitals, the Golden Knights. I mean, these are Carolina. These are all the top teams in the NHL. Like, why are they getting all these teams down the road? Like, strength of schedule in the NFL, if Red Wings didn't make the playoffs last year, but sure as shit, they had the toughest second half schedule of any NHL team. How does that happen to a team that didn't make the playoffs? I think we talked to the schedulers, and we also let those schedulers know that Tony's not allowed at the games either. So, I
mean, hold on. Before we get into that, if you're gonna, pretend you're Jeremy Renner in Avengers Endgame here, after just wiping out the Yakuza, and Scarlett Johansson comes up to you, and I think I might have a solve for this. Don't give me any hope. I would not want to be the NHL scheduler, if you're, Hawkeye here, because that's not good news for them.
All right, guys. Great talk today. It's always great seeing your faces. I missed you last week while I was off. I couldn't stop thinking about you guys. Missed you so much. But we're going to wrap here. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter at Flying Octopod. You can also find us on iTunes and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And check out our YouTube channel and give us a like at Flying Octopod as well. Guys, any plans this weekend? Anything big going on?
Not going to a Red Wings game.
Oh, yeah. We got March Madness this weekend to get us through this little lull and depression. So, all right. So by the time we see you next week, the Red Wings will have had a brutal little 3-game road trip here with playing Vegas on Saturday, Utah on Monday, Colorado on Tuesday, and then they'll host the Senators at the LCA on Thursday night. So that's a big stretch coming up. So we're going to have a lot to talk about next week. So thank you for listening to episode 27 of the Flying Octopus podcast, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Flying Octopus podcast. Follow us on YouTube at the Flying Octopus channel and Twitter at Flying Octopod.